Here we are. All right. We are now about to go. We are live, I think. Yes, we're live. All right. Now we're going to start. So, welcome back, Wolfers. This is Tulani, one of the moderators from the Wolfer community, and I'm here talking today with Lisa Jefferson. And she's going to discuss a myriad of topics, all related to finances and also related to herself. We're going to try and parse through some of the terminology that relates to money and ask some pertinent questions relative to right now. So first of all, I should start by saying that Lisa and I work together, and we worked together for many, many years. And she works with several of my clients, and we have a lot of shared colleagues, and she's someone who I deeply respect and admire, but I want to make sure that I'm clear that yes, Lisa and I do work together, but I do not pay her directly. At least not yet. So Lisa's based out here in LA County. She's in the Woodland Hills area, and we are coming to you live over Zoom today. So welcome, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I don't have my Zoom lighting all together yet, but here I am working remotely from home, which I do anyway. So it wasn't that much of a departure from what I normally do. But
yeah,
I'm here to answer any questions that you might want. I am a business manager, bookkeeper here in the LA area, and I help clients to organize their finances, kind of just keep everything organized on their personal and business finances, help them to get everything prepared for tax season, help clients with payroll, with insurance, just day-to-day financial affairs. I used to be a publicist in the music industry back in the day, which is how I met Tulani. And since then, I've segued into this line of work, and it's been great for me, and I enjoy it. I enjoy helping my clients out and helping them to better prepare for their futures. And so I'm here to help you guys in answering any questions that Tulani asked me.
So I think the first thing you touched upon was that you are a business manager and you're a bookkeeper. And I think that a lot of the language around money in particular is a little bit opaque for people who are not working directly with it or in contact with it. So I want everyone to understand the difference between an accountant versus a bookkeeper versus a business manager, and the combination of all of those, because you provide different services than a tax preparer does, but you work with tax preparers and you know how to, accumulate all the documentation for that. You work with financial advisors and people who handle investments directly, but you're kind of the oracle or the conduit for all things money related. And I think that when especially women are trying to come into the world of money, they come with a little bit of a deficit of some of the terminology if it's not their field or it's not something that they've been exposed to greatly. So if you could just explain, like, what precisely does your title mean?
Okay, so I'm not an accountant. An accountant is the person, or a tax preparer. That is somebody that went to school for accounting and knows is a lot better at math than I am. I basically take everything that you do on a day-to-day basis, and it goes into a system that I use, QuickBooks, and I basically account for everything that you spend, all of your expenditures on a business side mainly. Mainly people do this for businesses because it makes it easier at tax time for you to get everything to your accountant in an organized fashion. So when your accountant comes to you in November or December before the next tax season, preparing season, and they say, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. If you have a bookkeeper, that person can basically provide all of that information that your accountant needs to the accountant. And you don't have to go digging in your files for every receipt or expenditure that you had during the previous year. What a bookkeeper would do is they would stay on top of all of those finances throughout the year, and it's all organized in a fashion so that your accountant can use it to best prepare your taxes so that you get the best benefit from everything that you did throughout the year. You're not going to have to remember, oh, did I spend this on this for this trip? What happens is it's automatically uploaded into a system that I use called QuickBooks. And I'm constantly in there putting everything to the right account so that it's recorded correctly for tax season. So all your travel is in for travel, everything that you did, all your meals are in there, all your gifts are in there, all of the areas where your accountant can use to help you tax wise. I'm keeping track of it during the year so that you don't have to worry about it at tax time. So that's what I do as a bookkeeper. And then as a business manager, I'm helping my clients on a personal side and a business side. And there are many things that I do to help my clients on a day-to-day basis. The first thing being just help them to pay all their bills. So for instance, if I have a client that is a performer and they're out on the road all the time, they're not at home to take care of their mail coming in, to see what bills need to be paid, to make sure they have money in their account to pay it. So I am retained to pay the bills, make sure there's money in the account to pay it, and just pretty much take care of all their personal finances while they are away or on the road. That's what I do as far as business management goes. I manage the personal side of their expenses and I manage the business side of their expenses, which maybe Tulani could ask some more questions about that because I think I talked a while.
Well, I think that's a great foundational kind of, clarification of what it is that you specifically do. And I think that, obviously a lot of the people who are going to be watching are not necessarily in a position where they're either performers or their business is necessarily large to the extent that they may require the services of a business manager. But I think one of the, a lot of the things that we're going to get to are some practical things that all of us can take care of and look for. I think, though, that it's important also to distinguish that while a lot of these things sound simple, they end up being a lot more complicated than we anticipate them being. For example, tracking your expenses, we can all do that, and we all should be doing that regularly. The reality is very few of us are actually on top of our expenditures on a regular basis. No one wants to sit down and balance their checkbook the way that, is probably a good idea so that we can save ourselves some pain down the line. But I think it's really important for us to kind of make money and all things financial less frightening and less daunting and less overwhelming. So I can give full disclosure that Lisa has been helping me during this period try to navigate the PPP program. And we're not going to get into the specifics of what I am going to declare as the nightmare of the PPP program. But for a lot of sole proprietors and small business owners, of which we have quite a few in the community, going through that process on your own when you don't have any kind of foundational knowledge is very challenging. So I came to Lisa and she actually offered and I took her up on it. And then we tried to work together to navigate through this system and we haven't quite gotten through it yet. And we discussed whether unemployment would be preferable or more advantageous versus the PPP program, what all of that information even is, how to make sense of that. And I have worked as an independent contractor for decades. However, there are certain things with money that terrify me. It's my hang up. I admit it. I'm not particularly good at it. I can build a budget for other people. I can't build a budget for myself. I'm a hot mess on the personal side. So people like Lisa are very inspiring and helpful, to come to you with questions, and certainly your clients of, several of mine are also yours, have benefited tremendously and really can't get through because of their professional obligations. They can't get through the process of things that would seem pretty simple for the rest of the folks out there. So I think the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the small business aspect, because you are not only representing effectively small businesses, even though they're people, but you also have a small business of your own. So you know it from both sides. So can you talk about how the transition was for you to start your own company, and then what that's meant overall, and maybe some insight into how other people who are interested in starting their own business, things they can look out for and so forth? So it's a bit of a big question.
Yeah, it is a big question. The thing I wanted to just touch on first is, just small business owners needing help. First of all, there's so many women, especially, that are venturing out on their own nowadays and starting small businesses for a variety of reasons. And especially when you're over 40, which I think this group specifically is. I feel there are less opportunities for women of that age in the workplace a lot of times nowadays, especially because women have to navigate so many different parts of their lives, like childcare, taking care of your home. It could be your elder parents. So we have so many things going on. For me, starting my own company was the best thing I could have ever done, because now I am able to figure out how to juggle all those things on my own time, and it works. It's great. It's amazing, and I love it. So if you're thinking about starting your own small business, or if you have already done it, congratulations, yay. So yeah, it's amazing. But I mean, I have friends, my best friend who started a small business a few years ago, yesterday hired me because she just needed help with invoicing her clients and keeping track of the money coming into her bank account for each of those clients. So she has a small business, but she has like 10 different clients. So she gets paid on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, every 3 months basis by 10 different clients. And she needs to track, when that money is coming into her account, what client is paying her on a project by project basis, just so she can look at it at the end of the year. So sometimes it's just hard. We don't have time to, if you have your own small business, to keep track of everything in just in an organized way. And unfortunately, we put ourselves on the back burner. So I don't even take care of my finances the way I take care of my clients' finances, so it sometimes is helpful to pay someone, and you'd be surprised. It could be, a small amount of money that you would need to pay somebody just to help you organize yourself in that fashion. And it's brain power. I mean, you just, the time it would take for you to sit there and figure out what's coming in and what's going out on a monthly basis, you could have done what you wanted to do, what you started your company to do, 3 times over, with the amount of time it's taking you to do all that financial stuff. So it's just something that you can hand over to somebody else to deal with, and it takes it off your plate. Tulani, I don't know if I answered any of the questions that you wanted me to answer.
You answered it. You did. I mean, because that leads me to another question for you, which is like, so you're doing this thing at home, whatever this thing is, right? At what point do you think I'm actually running a business? You know what I mean? Like, so if I'm sitting at home and everybody in the community probably knows that I'm like crocheting like a mad woman to like handle my anxiety. So I'm crocheting and I'm making all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, let's say people want these things. And so I offer to sell them to them. And then at what point does this actually become a business? Is it when it's taking up a majority share of your time? Is it when you start generating revenue over a certain amount? when do we start thinking, oh, well, this is a business? I mean, obviously, when you're dedicating yourself to becoming a consultant, or you're opening up, something more concrete,
Yeah, right. I mean, there are things that are hobbies, and there are things that are businesses. And I think when you, I mean, I had a company, and I still do this kind of on the side, but where I would go antiquing and I would sell things, and I was starting to bring in money, but then I would also use my expenses and give that to my accountant. And so in a way, so I guess I would say it's a business when you start to really think about it as something that you need to talk to your accountant about, and officially um, document it so that it makes sense for you at tax time, so that you can get a benefit out of it. Sometimes you can do that for a while, just with your social security number. But I think, the best thing to do is talk to your accountant and to say to him, I'm doing this, I've been doing this for a while, and ask your accountant, when does it make sense for me to formalize it? Which means you would, maybe get a tax ID number, maybe create an LLC. Um, so the thing about having a business is you got to collaborate, with more more people, to figure it out.
So then I've got another question for you. A lot of women are unclear about what the differences are between the different designations that we have. So a sole proprietorship, working as an independent contractor, is different, where you're just using your social security number, is different from a sole proprietorship if you have an LLC, which is what I have, but you have a federal ID number.
I have an LLC.
Yeah, and then there you can bump up from there to an SCorp, which is a different kind of entity, but also federally designated. And then you can go to a CCorp, which is something also different. And I don't necessarily expect you to go too much into the weeds about all of that, but structurally, each of those entities serves a different purpose and benefit, but they also have different obligations and requirements from us. So if you're able, can you touch on just one or two of those so that some of our viewers understand?
I mean, yeah, it's really something that you need to figure out with your accountant. But I can give you an example. I deal with two small businesses. One is a CCorp, one is an SCorp. Just in the past year, the accountant that we work with has said that they would like the CCorp to be an SCorp. For him, it makes more sense. Once again, this is the tax accountant question. I can't get into all of the, whys or whats. There's certain benefits that a corporation has that a CCorp can. For instance, your medical expenses cannot be written off if you are an SCorp. If you are a CCorp, medical expenses can be written off based on your income. So you can write off a certain amount of your medical expenses depending on how much money you're bringing in to your company. And there's a bunch else surrounding that I don't know, that the accountant.
And of course, and it's also state by state, and so everyone, and the thing with everything is, yes, talk to your tax preparer before anything that relates to your taxes. But there's there are certain questions people don't even know to ask.
Yeah, I mean, there was something that came up with this PPP loan that was, it was harder to provide documentation that the bank needed if you're an independent contractor and you don't have an official payroll account with a payroll company. Like if you're not on payroll yourself, which means when you're on payroll, you're paying yourself, but you're also paying your taxes at the same time. So you're paying federal, state taxes, you're doing Medicare, you're having things taken out officially out of your paycheck that you wouldn't necessarily do if you're an independent contractor. You would just be receiving that income, and that's the money that you receive. But if you're on payroll, you have documentation of what you've paid yourself and how much taxes you've paid. And it was beneficial to have that to provide to the banks for the PPP loans, which I have to say that 2 of my clients were successful in getting PPP loans, and they did have the documentation of the payroll for last year and for this year. And that may have helped to expedite the process.
Okay. So I've
Oh,
got to,
say
yes,
something
yes.
that I thought about that I wanted to make sure to mention today. There are many benefits that if you do have a corporation, retirement wise, 401ks and that kind of thing. So there's a new thing that I found out about that has happened within the last few years called an Ulnar K Plan, which is a retirement plan that you are allowed to have even if you are an independent contractor or a sole proprietor. You can only have one employee, like yourself, and one other, a spouse, to qualify for the Owner K Plan, which is a way for you to put money aside for yourself for retirement that is pre-tax income, which means you would not be taxed on that amount of money that you put away for yourself. And it's based on either your earnings or how much you set aside. It's really based on your earnings. Like, you can only put aside a certain portion of your earnings. But the great thing is, say you made $100,000 in a year, you can put aside a big portion of that, which means you're only going to be taxed. Say you put aside 25,000 or even 10,000, then you're basically taxed on the 90,000, or you'd be taxed on the 75,000, and all of that money is going into a retirement plan for you. So it's a great way that owners of companies can put aside money. And if anybody wants more information on that, I can share that documentation with Tulani at the end of this, and she can upload it. All the information on the Owner K Plan. I think it's pretty great, because I officially stopped working for a company that offered me a 401k plan in 2004. The company that I worked with for the last 10 years did not offer any kind of a retirement plan. So all those years, 2004 until now, I've had nothing going away to retirement. So this is a great way, if you do own a company, just so you could put as little or as much as you are allowed to contribute into this plan. I think it's a great way to put away money for your future.
So one of our viewers said you can also open a Roth solo 401k, which is something I've not heard about. I know that the 401ks and the Roths are,
it's the same thing.
Changing.
Yeah, I believe, the Owner K Plan has several different ways you can contribute, and that is one.
Okay.
It's basically a 401k plan, or it's a Roth plan. There's like several different ways to contribute.
Okay, excellent. I want to ask you what your experience has been. We're going to step away a little bit from the practical applications of, the money and whatever, and talk a little bit more about you. It is not, and I can say this because I had to do some research on the topic last fall when we were doing our educational outreach program, which Lisa was kind enough to come and speak to the attendees about in New York. It is very difficult to find women who work in finance. And that's not to say that there aren't women. And I know that there are women in our community who also work in finance in some capacity. Uh-oh, she's back. Okay, I thought I lost you. What is your experience been as you're a business owner and you're a woman and you're also a woman of color to work in the money field? And are you finding other women? I know that you and you've introduced me to at least one other woman who works in this capacity.
Yeah.
But what is that about?
Tulani, you talk for 1 second more. I need to get a battery.
So Lisa's coming, she'll be coming back to us with a charger cable. And I think that this is a funny aside. There's been something that I have learned in doing these Zooms now that I never would have thought about before, which is I now have multiple batteries, multiple cables. I've learned how to set up my lighting so that I don't look like a terrifying individual when I do these. And tons and tons and tons of makeup so that I look like I have no makeup on whatsoever. So that's just an aside while Lisa gets herself charged up.
See that, friends.
We're always among friends. That's one of the benefits of being in the Wolford group in general. So back to Lisa, who now has full charge and is plugged in. Being a woman working in the finance field, being a woman of color working in the finance field, let me know, give me a little insight on how that is.
Okay, so I happen to know that my woman of color that I work with was happy to see me when she first met me. She was really pleasantly surprised that I also am a woman of color. So I mean, I think it just, I'm not really, I'm trying to think of the word. Like, how do I feel when I meet other women of color? I guess,
I mean, are there a lot of you? Because I haven't seen women, period, in many capacities, and I've gone out of my way to find them.
You know what? I honestly haven't. There are. I'm going to take that back. There are. It just depends. I mean, really, it just depends. You just got to navigate it. So I'm not going to say there isn't, because I've been in groups of bookkeepers, and a very high number were many. You know, there were a myriad of colors and sexes. So and quite a few females. So yeah, no, I think there are more and more. It might be the field too, Tulani. I mean, we are in entertainment, so that may have something to do with it. Maybe there are not as many in entertainment. I know that.
I feel like there's an opportunity there. If you're a woman and you want to get into, you know, business management or account management or something in that regard, as a woman, you know, I know that we're always looking to help promote other women in whatever field, but particularly in entertainment, because there are so few.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I would say also just about being a woman is that I just feel like we all can relate to what we have to deal with, and can be supportive of each other in many more ways, I think, than men can. I mean, you know,
Absolutely.
which is great. It really is. I mean, we just get it. We get it, you know?
Yeah, you get a little shorthand. It's always nice to see a friendly face, you know, when you're dealing, especially when you're dealing with something that can be as fraught as your money in particular.
I mean, I think women are sensitive to a lot of issues that that men aren't, you know.
Yeah.
And that goes across, obviously, we know it goes across many different areas. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. My goddaughter was interviewing me about she's going to work for Chevrolet, and she had to do this is such a side thing. She had to do a research project on service people when you go to take your car in for service. And I had an experience where I had this really just this guy that was just so, he never took the time to listen to me when I would bring my car in for service, and he would always try and sell me something. And I got really annoyed. And so my husband had to step in and say, he's being this way, don't, what can we do? We don't like the service guy. And so then they asked me, well, what do you want? What can we do for you? And I said, I don't want a guy. Give me a female. I want a female service person. They didn't even have one. They didn't even have a female service person. It just goes, but I felt like, females just have, something about them, like an empathy or that you don't get from a man, we can empathize with. That's such a side thing, but it's just true.
Well, and of course there are always exceptions. So, before anyone gets upset, we know that there's exceptions in all cases, but I do tend to agree with you.
By the way, they gave me a gay guy after that, and he was great.
So I have a question for you. Things that we can do at home from a bookkeeping standpoint. What are some practical tips that each of us can apply to our lives so that we can keep our money matters in order?
Okay. I think that most banks, and I know that a lot of the credit card companies nowadays have a way that they help you to organize your finances within their app. If you get your credit card, a lot of times they organize your statement for you, with travel or gas or auto. It's kind of already organized. That's been really helpful for me, just on the, for my own personal book. So I would just say take advantage of any free app that maybe your bank has or your credit card has, where you could organize your finances. QuickBooks is a great program. They do charge a monthly fee, and it's less if you go through somebody that is a QuickBooks registered provider like me. Like if I get a QuickBooks account for someone, it's at a discount. So if you were ever interested in getting QuickBooks, you can go through somebody to get it so that your rate doesn't go up, for instance, and it would be just a regular rate for the lifetime of the subscription if you go through somebody a lot of times. But yeah, just take advantage of anything free that you can do. I know Tulani is a big fan of taking pictures of your receipts and emailing them to yourself, and anything online that you can do like that, because who wants to keep all that paperwork? Nobody. So if you could just you make everything digitized, or
the paperless thing that's definitely that's definitely been a godsend for me, because if it's at least if it's in the cloud or on a drive or it's someplace, then I can at least access it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say is don't put off certain things that you need to deal with financially. It's better just to kind of
I'm totally guilty of procrastination. To the 11:59 p.m. and then I'll be like, okay, I'll do it.
You get it done. You get it done. So just get it done, girls, ladies.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate you taking time out, because I know you've got everyone at home. You've got a lot of stuff, happening. Oh, we've got one last question before we go. Technical question. I understand that a business can operate on either a cash or accrual basis. Why would a person choose one method over the other? Can a person change the method of accounting later?
Well, I know that basically, like in my accounting system that I work with, you can just pick accrual or cash. I think one of them allows you to keep track of what money is coming in later, or money that is gonna come in. You can keep track that way. I mean, honestly, you can switch I do believe it, you can switch. And it once again, it is an accounting thing, but within my QuickBooks system, I can switch it from accrual to cash basis at at any time. It's I think you can change it. Honestly, I don't know if I know how to answer that question in the best way. You probably would want to ask an accountant.
Because it probably depends on what state you live in and what your entity's configuration is and so on and so forth, I would imagine. But hopefully, Diana, I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but I hope that that answers it a little bit. So barring any other
It
questions,
might
I think,
benefit you. Let me just say one thing. I think it might benefit you. You're right. It does benefit you in uh, with the way that you see your money coming in and going out, depending on which way you do it. So, and that's just something that you would want to ask your accountant.
okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it. So thank you for the viewer questions. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate you putting up with all of our technical hijinks as well. And I know you've got everyone at home with you. So I hope you're all keeping well, keeping
Thank
healthy.
you. Stay safe, everybody.
All right.